Let's look at the scales of cyclone intensities. Sorry, I went off. We saw this already. Saffir-Simpson is the original scale, which was based on various estimates of damage and storm surges and so on, which obviously already outdated in some sense. Population along the hurricane paths have increased. Global warming has happened, so things keep changing. Nonetheless, for historical purposes and for continued use in forecasting, we'll look at these different scales. So Saffir-Simpson category goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and some people are very comfortable using maximum velocities in meter per second, but some use kilometers per hour or miles per hour, and people even use knots. You have to just get comfortable with something. And the maximum velocity in the US typically tends to be averaged over 1 minute, whereas we will see that in the other regions of the world typically tends to get averaged over 10 minutes. It's just convention based on various empirical experiences. So here we are in minimum central pressure associated with the kind of velocities, maximum velocity, sustained wind speeds, and as we can imagine, as the maximum sustained wind speed has to get stronger, the eye pressure, minimum pressure in the eye has to get lower, and how rapidly it drops will determine how rapidly the cyclone is intensifying, right? So we are here going for category 1 from 33 to 42 meter per second, 43 to 49 for category 2, 50 to 58 for category 3, 59 to 69 for category 4, and category 5 has sustained wind speeds of 70 plus. And you can see that that gets much scarier when you look at kilometers per hour, because we are not so used to thinking about meters per second when it comes to driving or wind speeds and so on. So either miles per hour or kilometer per hour give you a sense of just how ferocious the winds are when you get to category 5 hurricanes. So obviously, as we saw before, as the cyclones get closer to land and they hit coast, the energy that they can pick up from the ocean gets reduced, so the category drops, wind speeds drop. But now under global warming, the issue is, are they remaining stronger as they get close to the coast because the ocean has warmed, and so on. The expected damages, we will go through these even though we don't necessarily compare these to what happened. You typically just document what damages were done, lives lost, etc. So in category 1 there is minimal damage, primarily to vegetation and unanchored homes, no real damage to other structures, but this really depends on whether there is a slum in the way with the shanties, which are not very strong. Category 2, moderate, so major damage to exposed mobile homes, no major damage to buildings, but some damage to roofing materials, windows, doors possible, considerable damage to vegetation, and some trees blown down. I will read those just so that you get a sense. 3, the damage will be expected to be extensive, most mobile homes destroyed, structural damage to smaller buildings, large trees blown down, and other vegetation damage. May need to evacuate low-lying homes near the shoreline. So when the forecasts are issued, decisions are made to evacuate people depending on the storm surge expected. In category 4, the extreme damage to be expected will result in complete destruction of mobile homes, extensive damage to roofing materials, windows, and doors, evacuation of all residents within 500 yards of the shore, and of single-story residents within 2 miles of the shore may be required, because the storm surge and inundation can make the single-story houses unsafe. They might be completely underwater and there may be no place to hide. Okay? And 5 is catastrophic damage, some complete building failures, small buildings blown away, complete destruction of mobile homes, considerable damage to roofs, buildings, etc. Very severe, extensive damage to windows and doors, extensive shattering of glass in windows and doors, vegetation decimated, evacuation of low-lying homes within 5 to 10 miles of shore likely. So we are going from 500 yards to 5 to 10 miles. So when we talk about storm surge and inundation, of course now with global warming we have sea level rise, so the storm surge and inundation can extend much further inland as well. The Australian region, gust and wind speeds here, I won't go through the damage this time, but again categories 1 through 5. Range of strongest gusts in kilometer per hour, because typically they don't do anything else. So here less than 125, 125 to 170, 170 to 225, 225 to 280, and greater than 280 when you hit category 5. So you can see that this is slightly higher than what we saw here, 250 here and 280 here. So obviously the scales are different based on local experiences and local records. The numbers of cyclones may be smaller, but it depends on what the historic experiences have been. Western North Pacific, the typhoon region, and the Indian Ocean categories. Here, range of 10-minute mean wind as opposed to 1-minute mean winds in kilometer per hour or meters per second. So 60 to 119. This is called here, the names also change, called tropical storm across the 3 regions, Western North Pacific, North and South Indian Oceans. 120 to 227 called typhoon here, and severe cyclonic storm here. So in the South Indian Ocean is still referred to as tropical cyclone and severe tropical cyclone, depending on if the wind speeds 10-minute average go greater than 227 kilometers per hour. Because the ocean is smaller and the landfall happens at a much shorter distance, the maximum wind speeds are lower here, and they are not listed as category 1, 2, 3. They are listed as tropical storm, typhoon, and super typhoon. In the Indian Ocean, at least in the North Indian Ocean, they are called cyclonic storm, severe cyclonic storm, very severe, extremely severe, and then at the highest category they are called super cyclones, okay, as opposed to super typhoons. So these are the kind of categories, and each region has institutions under the World Meteorological Organization regions which are responsible for forecasting. The naming convention now has evolved from the 1800s to now. There was a time when it was just female names, but now WMO uses male and female names, and in the Indian Ocean they tend to be inanimate objects, and the names are picked by the rim countries who are likely to be affected, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there is the WMO-SCAP panel on tropical cyclones in this region, RMSC La Réunion. Here the region 7, 8, and 9 are in here, and so on and so forth. So okay, I don't know what else to say. That the tropical cyclone regions have been split into multiple agencies which are doing local cyclone forecasting, and forecasts are shared with the countries that are affected. For example, India does the cyclone monitoring and forecasting in the North Indian Ocean, and it issues forecasts in public, so all the countries can have access to it and make their own plans about evacuation, disaster management, disaster recovery, and so on. India also has a Indian National Center for Ocean Information System, which generates waves and storm surge, which are also made public, and various countries can use them for taking decisions. Okay.